Hey class, I'm Mr. Thornton and I'm going to help you succeed in your GCSE. This lesson, how to get an A star in science. I've made this video as a two-part collab with Eve Bennett. The link to her video is down in the description and I'll also put a link on screen at the end. She's going to be telling you about her experiences in preparing for her science GCSEs and how she went about getting the A-star grades which she got last year. And I'm going to be telling you more about how the exam system works and how to get your teachers to help you get those A-stars. I get a lot of comments asking for this because my early videos were all just aimed at C students, so for all the following people, this video's for you. Now, obviously, there is no simple trick to getting an A star. Your subject knowledge is going to need to be really good for you to even have a chance of getting this A star. And that's just going to take some time and effort. What I'm going to focus on though is how it is that people who have excellent subject knowledge end up missing those A star grades, and how people who have subject knowledge which isn't quite as good can actually turn what might be a B or maybe even a low A into an A star grade just with a little careful application of how they actually work. First, let's talk about grade boundaries. Something not many people realise is that no one knows exactly how many marks you'll need to get an A star until after all the exams are done and marked. The exam board don't set the grade boundaries until then. This is because they don't know exactly how easy or difficult that exam paper is going to be until everyone's sat it. And typically they'll get quite a lot of people with marks around some sort of central mean score, and with a few people having very low marks or very high marks. And when you plot them on a graph, you tend to get a normal distribution, something like this. Some years and some papers are going to be easier than others. That's just the way it works. There's no way to make it so that each individual paper, each individual year, for each individual exam board, to make them all exactly the same and exactly identical. So what they need to do is set the grade boundaries afterwards so that you can compare GCSE grades from one year to the next and from one exam board to the next. So what they'll do is they say, we want to have this many people, this proportion of the people getting the grades to have an A star grade. And wherever that line fits, based on the marks for that year, that's what they'll say is going to be the A star grade boundary. When you hear people talking about UMS scores compared to raw scores, that's what they're really talking about. The raw score is the mark out of 60 or whatever that you get on that particular exam paper. The UMS score is what you get once it's been converted via this graph to set it to the different grade boundaries. So it's actually possible in some cases to not get full marks on the paper and still get full UMS. This is because so long as you've got past that upper grade boundary, then no matter what score you get, you are going to get the full UMS. You're going to be awarded that top grade. The percentage you need to get right on a paper to get an A star grade tends to be about 90%, but it does vary. Generally speaking, people tend to perform better on the biology papers, so they tend to have higher grade boundaries. That is, you'll need to get more marks to get up to that A star. Conversely, on physics, they tend to have lower grade boundaries because people generally tend to find that the hardest. Now, this is an important point and I'm going to come back to it shortly, so do please remember it. It's also worth noting at this point, 90% means that you can be dropping 1 mark out of 10 and still get an A star grade. No one's expecting you to be able to get 100% of the marks. So don't set yourself an unattainable standard. Remember that no one really needs to be able to get 100% to be able to get the top marks. Now let's take a look at how grades are calculated. For those of you sitting courses with exams in 2017 on the legacy specifications, the way it works is each individual grade which you'll get at the end of your GCSEs comes down to 3 exams and 1 assessed practical or ISA. But the way that that's divided up varies a little bit depending on whether or not you're doing dual award or triple award. So let's have a look at dual award first. When you get your final GCSE certificates in dual award, you will get 2 GCSEs. One of those will be for the first unit which you've done, the core unit. That's going to cover the first bits of biology, chemistry and physics which you did, plus an assessed practical or an ISA. That is basically going to be everything which you looked at in year 10, or if you started on that work in year 9, then it's going to be the year 9 stuff up to probably around about sort of May, June time in year 10. And then you get a second GCSE for all of the additional work which you did. So that is all of the biology, chemistry and physics which you did after that point, and a second assessed practical or ISA. And it tends to work out like this. They normally refer to them as core or P1, B1, C1, and additional, which may be B1, C2, P2, plus there will be that assessed practical or ISA. Now, each part of this counts for 25% of your final total, and that's a really crucial thing to bear in mind. If you're going for an A star, you need to be making sure that you get 90%, or ideally a little bit more than 90%. Which means that you can't afford to be getting a lousy mark on any one of these. Each one of them needs to be a decent mark because each one of them is going to take your total up towards that 90%. So to break that down, if you think about it, what you really need to be getting out of the 25%, you need to be getting 22.5% of that 25% on each one of these. Or to put that another way, 90% on each individual one of these. But if you get more, if you get a bigger percentage on one of them, then that's going to drag your grade up. If you get a lower percentage on one of them, then that's going to drag your grade down. And that's really what I want to focus on. This is where an understanding of grade boundaries in UMS comes in as well. Because, as I said, the biology papers tend to be ones which people perform more highly on. So getting a score of, say, 80% on a biology paper is typically going to be worth less to your overall total on UMS than 80% on a physics paper. Or to put it another way, the marks on a physics paper are typically worth slightly more than the marks on a biology paper when it comes to working out your overall total. Now, this is a crucial thing to bear in mind because if physics is your weakest subject, as it is most people's weakest subject, then you really need to make sure that you're doing extra work on that because that extra work can pay off more. Now, I'm not saying don't revise biology. Obviously, you're going to need to do that as well. Every mark counts, but the takeaway here is that some marks count more. So when you're thinking about that one subject which is your least favourite out of the different ones, bear in mind that could be the one which actually plays the key role in getting you your A star. You can't afford to neglect the things which you aren't as fond of because they could be the really crucial ones when it comes to getting a really good score. For those of you doing triple award, things work a little bit differently. You will still be doing core and additional work. In fact, the exam papers which you sit for those will probably be exactly the same as the exam papers which the people doing the dual award sit. But the way that your grades are worked out is a bit different because you're going to get 3 GCSE grades. You will get a grade for biology, a grade for chemistry, and a grade for physics. And that is going to be based on your core and additional topics, plus an extra unit for each one of those, and of course that assessed practical or ISA. Now, although in this case the disproportionately low grade boundaries which typically tend to happen with physics aren't really going to help you so much, your physics mark can no longer drag up your biology or chemistry marks as much, there is a way to play this game as well. Because remember, the first topic, that core topic in each of these subjects, is probably going to be the one which people find the easiest. And the final triple topic is going to be the one which people find the hardest. So that's the one where you really need to devote your time more than to the other two. Again, I am not saying neglect those other two. You definitely need to do some revision on those as well. But that final topic, that is generally going to be worth a bit more per mark on the paper than the other two would be. That's probably, if you put a decent amount of effort in, that's probably going to be the one where you can get the most marks. There are various ways to look at this, but in my opinion, the key point here is that, ironically enough, the subject which is probably your least favourite one and the one where you think you're going to do the worst, that is quite probably the one where you have the best chance of getting the highest grades. That is probably, if you put the graft in, going to be the one which can help rescue those other marks and improve your chances of getting those A star grades. but you are going to need to put that work in. As Eve says in her video, she started revising after the February half term, and you really need to be starting doing some revision now as well. I'm not saying spending 5 hours a night or anything ridiculous like that, but you should be starting some revision now if you're really serious about wanting to get those A-star grades. They do not give them away, so make sure that you're making a start after you've watched this video. The second thing I want to talk about in this video is those assessed practical or ISA grades. Remember, they also count for 25% of your final GCSE grade. And that can make a really huge difference. If you get an excellent grade on that assessed practical, then that can give you approximately a 5% higher mark overall. That might not seem like much, but remember the grade boundaries are only 10% apart. An extra 5% gives you a 50-50 chance of being at the next grade boundary up. Conversely, if you'd got 100% on every single one of those other GCSEs on the exams, but your ISA or your assessed practical was 65% or lower, then there is basically no chance that you're going to get an A-star. 65% is not that bad a mark, but it will drag down your average so much that it's impossible for you to get an A-star. So it's essential that you do well on these, and it is possible to improve whatever grade you've already got if you've done them, and if you haven't done them, then you've got time to prepare for them. If you haven't already done the assessed practicals, then they will be coming up soon. And bear in mind your teachers are well aware of this. They will be trying very hard to make sure you understand all the things that you need to do for them. So pay really, really close attention. It's not that they'll be able to tell you the answers in lessons, of course, but they will be making sure that all of the terminology and all of the skills which you need for those assessed practicals are covered in lessons. Now, each different exam board is different and each different assessed practical is going to be different, and there's no way for me to sum up succinctly and quickly all the things which you need to know about these, but your teachers will be able to do. They are your single greatest resource when it comes to these assessed practicals, so make use of that resource. However, there is a tiny bit of a problem with those teachers, which is that they understand what your target grades are, and so long as you are reaching your target grade on the assessed practical, they are probably going to be happy just to leave it at that. So if your target grade's a B and you've got a B, they're going to go, okay, great, they've got their target grade, that's fine. That is going to be a problem if you are genuinely interested in trying to get the A-star. So let me explain a little bit about what your next step needs to be. Of course, you're not allowed to repeat an assessed practical. You're not allowed to do the same one over and over again. But that's okay, because what happens is the exam boards send out a series of assessed practicals. There will be more than one. And the exam board don't care which one the schools pick. It could be any one of them. There'll be a few which are valid for each subject, and the schools get to choose which one they think their students will be best able to do. Now, if you've already done your assessed practical, then you've probably already done the most straightforward one. But with a little bit of preparation and a little bit of care, then you would be able to have a go at another one. There's nothing saying that you can't have a go at a second one. It might be a tiny bit more difficult, but there is still that opportunity for you to have a second go and possibly even a third go. All you need to do is make sure that your teachers understand that you want to do that. That is a little bit easier said than done though. Remember, your teachers have a lot of work on, and these assessed practicals are even more work. Personally, I'm going to be extremely glad to see the back of them after this year, and pretty much every other science teacher that I know feels the same way. So if you're really going to want to do this again a second time, even after you've already got your target grade, you're going to need to convince your teachers to put in that extra time and effort, because it is going to be an additional amount of work for them to do at a time when they're already very busy. And it's really important that you bear that in mind, because if you're thinking about your teachers as people, not just marking machines, you will find it a lot easier to persuade them to let you have another go. And that's the key thing. You're going to need to persuade them. It's not enough just to whine at most teachers. If you're currently working at a D grade, if on all your previous tests and exams you've got a D grade and you've got a D grade for your target and you've got a D grade for the assessed practical, then why on earth would anyone in their right mind say, oh yes, have a go at another one, because you want to get an A star grade. You're going to have to convince them for a start. So any upcoming tests, any practice assessments, you need to make sure for a start that you are acing them. You need to get the very best marks you possibly can. Because remember, you're trying to convince them that you've turned over a new leaf and that you can get an A star. They are not going to go through that whole process again if it's going to be a wasted effort, because why would they? They've got a lot of other things which they need to do. So you need to be working hard to convince them that you are A star material. You're going to have to put the work in there. But if you can show them that you're doing that, I can't speak for every teacher, but certainly from my own perspective, I'm always happy to give up extra time for students who are really keen to go the extra mile. If you don't have any tests or exams coming up in the immediate future, then I suggest what you do is take the initiative. Get online, go and have a look at some past exam papers. They're all online. I'll leave the links to the exam board websites in the descriptions, and you can download them for free. Go through them, mark them, bring them into your teachers, and try saying to them, could you please check my marking on this? I think I've done well, but I want to make sure that my marking is correct. This will be a valuable experience for you anyway, because it will help you understand what does and doesn't count as something which is an acceptable answer. But at the same time, they are going to start to see you in a different light. They're going to start to see you as someone who's really committed to trying to get a really high grade. This will be a very effective way to convince them. I know it would convince me. And I'm saying this because I've had students in the past who've then come in and taken the initiative and shown me exam papers that they've done and said, I'm really trying now. I want to get a higher grade. Am I doing the right things? Be that person and you'll find that teachers will come around to your point of view fairly quickly. Remember that they're people too. Talk to them as people. Explain to them why it is you want that A star grade, not just because it would look great on your wall, having an A star grade on a certificate. What is it that really convinces you that you want and need that A star grade? What is your motivation here? And let them know. Explain to them that you're happy to put in the extra work. Ask if you can come back in your free time. At a break time or lunchtime or after school, tell them that you're happy to work around their schedule, because they're not always going to be able to fit in with your schedule. If you really want this, make sure that they know that you're prepared to go that extra mile. And if you are doing something like that, and if they're prepared to give up that extra time, then a few chocolates or biscuits wouldn't go amiss, and a card at the end to say thank you if they've put all that extra work in would be a nice touch too. Finally, with the best will in the world, it's not always going to be possible for every teacher to make the time available for you. If this is the case, please don't bear a grudge against that teacher. What I suggest you do is go and see the head of science and ask if they or someone else is able to give you the time you need to improve that grade. Explain how you feel, all the stuff which I've already been through, and make sure they're clear on that. And at this point, not with your normal classroom teacher, but at this point, if it's the head of science, then a little bit of parental pressure, a note in or a phone call can make a big difference as well. I appreciate this has been quite a long video, but there's just one more thing which I want to touch on briefly. And it's something which Eve mentioned in her video as well, but I just want to relate a personal story here. And that is what happened in my GCSE physics. I was always good at physics at school, as you may have guessed. It was my favourite subject at school. And when I sat down and did my mock GCSEs in January, back in, that must have been 1996, I got an A. There were no A star grades back then, by the way. They were brought in a year after I did my GCSEs. And so I was pretty pleased with that. I'd got the highest grade I could possibly get on that mock exam. And I pretty much relaxed at that point. I went, yep, got this one in the bag. Don't need to worry about it. And I did not put the same level of effort in that I did for my other GCSEs. And so I went from an A on my mock to a B in the final exam. I knew my stuff, but I hadn't done the preparation. So please don't get complacent about these things, because it can happen to anyone. I did subsequently go on and get an A in my A level, so I kind of made up for it, but it's still something which bugs me just a little bit, even to this day. Please learn from my mistake. The tricky thing here is context, understanding what other schools are like. You might be the best person in your science group of 25 to 30 people. But statistically speaking, you're probably not going to be the best person out of an entire nation. There are going to be around 700,000 people sitting GCSEs at the same time as you, and you're in competition with them. And that's what you need to keep bearing in mind. In Eve's video, I asked her a few questions about what her school was like. It would be great if you watched that video, listened to what her answers are, and just thought about how that compares with your own school. Now, it may be that your school is better, it may be that your school is worse. That doesn't matter. The key thing is that you have a realistic appreciation of where you stand, so that you understand what the education system is like and who you're competing with. If it was an athletic competition, you wouldn't go into that athletic competition having no idea whatsoever about what the standard of competition was from the other competitors. The exact same thing is true in your GCSEs. Know who you're competing with. Let me give you an example. Here's a photograph of Eton. And here's Prince William when he was attending Eton. And yes, that is the uniform. They got to choose what waistcoat they wore. But other than that, that's the kind of uniform that they had to wear. And they still do wear there. This is one of the top schools, not just in the country, but in the world. And yet they are sitting the same GCSEs as you. They are going to be doing the exact same exams as you. You are in competition with students receiving this level of education. And that's not really a fair system. I completely take that point. I'm not sure what a fairer system would look like exactly, because even if all the schools in the country were comprehensive schools, even then, there's still going to be some which are better than others. There's no way around that. And I'm not smart enough to figure out a better solution than this. But you are competing with people who are experiencing this level of education. Now, that is not to say that you are incapable of getting A-star grades. Far from it. Even in the worst school in the country, there will still be people who are capable of getting A-star grades. But you need to have a clear idea of exactly what it is you're going up against, because up until this point, you've probably only really thought of other schools as being fairly similar to yours. When in actual fact, there is a huge range of different schools out there. There is a vast range of quality of education which people are receiving. That said, it's also not a given just because you happen to be in line to the throne that you're also going to get a load of A-stars. As it happened, when Prince William did his GCSEs, he got 8 A's and 2 B's. Now, they're good grades, don't get me wrong, but no A-stars. Even students in the worst schools in the country can potentially get A-star grades. They are not off limits to anyone. You are going to have to put some work in. It is going to be a harder task for you than it would be for someone who's basically being spoon-fed an awful lot of the information and having excellent quality education, but it is possible, especially with all the resources which are available online now. Make use of them, do the preparation, and it is possible to get those A-star grades and even beat royalty. I hope you found this information useful and that it really gives you the edge in getting those top grades. And remember, even if you haven't seen eye to eye with them up until this point, your science teachers are going to be crucial in this task as well. And ultimately, they want the same thing that you want, which is for you to do really well. Do please also check out Eve Bennett's video on this, where she covers her experiences at school when she was preparing for her GCSEs, and remember, she got an A-star, so she knows what she's talking about on this. You can check out the other videos on my channel if you click down here, and you can also click this picture of my face to subscribe to my channel. And there's all sorts of other links down in the description for my app and my revision guides and my website. Good luck in your GCSEs, everyone, and thanks very much for watching.